everyone, Brace here, welcome to the video. So in my last video, I talked about Ninja Gaiden Sigma, and in the end I decided not to play the sequels for now. Maybe I will one day, but it did get me in the mood for some ancient Japanese sword fighting hijinks, and so I picked up Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm really looking forward to.
Hey Brace, are you sure you want to play something new?
What?
Wouldn't you rather just play the same games you've played countless times for decades?
Nah, I want the tranquility of riding a horse through an ancient Japanese meadow. You know, something mellow. I don't want to get too worked up for this one.
Contra.
Anyway, I downloaded the purely digital Konami Contra Anniversary Collection for PS4.
Good. Man up, you pussy.
So if you're unfamiliar, Contra is a series of side-scrolling action games, originally inspired by the action movies of the times, the 80's. We've got buff dudes with no shirts running around the jungle. These days, the genre is known as run and gun.
This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus.
What's that? You want to walk and wear a shirt? Too bad. Walking is stupid. Now pick up a machine gun and unleash hell against an army of evil aliens. Platforming is also a big part of the game as well, but we don't jump like this. We jump like this. Why? Because it looks cool. Use it to dodge incoming fire too. Heart containers, health bar, those are for wimps. Here it's one hit and you're dead. One tiny dot on the screen hits you and it'll send you backflipping to oblivion. Although the ducking pose in these games leaves something to be desired. It basically resembles this, but we'll just ignore that. These games also have the ability for two-player co-op action, double the firepower, though today we're just going solo. So the Anniversary Collection boots up, and it has a nice, easy interface with all the games to choose from. A ton of games to choose from, in fact. It's also got some of the regional versions included, like Japanese, that I'd never played before. And there's also an ebook with concept art, interviews, and tons of great information about the series for the hardcore fans. Each game also has a little description. Let's see, check out the first one here. It reads, wait, fighting Sprit? Sprit? This is the special Anniversary Collection, and there's a typo on the first screen. Maybe this is paying homage to the old school NES translations, like... So let's start with 1987. I grew up with the North American version for the NES. But there's also an arcade game, and there's a Japanese version on here as well. The NES version is a huge classic. It starts off with the title screen with the characters that were obviously inspired by Schwarzenegger and Stallone. How awesome would it have been if they teamed up for a live-action Contra movie in the late 80s? Instead, we had to wait until 2010 with the Expendables. And when they appear together, it's not even an action scene with these two. It's also 90% close-ups of their faces. And I know nothing about cinemogony, but even I can tell this scene could have looked way better. Anyway, taking down these aliens with just this little gun isn't going to be easy. Thankfully, there's upgrades. There's the machine gun, the flamethrower, laser beam, and of course, the spreader. Once I get one of these bad boys, along with a rapid fire to increase your rate of fire, and I almost feel sorry for the aliens. Almost. As mentioned, one-hit deaths, and only 3 lives to start with. Thankfully, you can get extra lives through points that we don't see during the stages, we just see it in between. But the screen is pretty much clear and wide open aside from your lives in the top corners. Compare this to other games from the same developer Konami, like say Castlevania, which has tons of info constantly showing at the top and it takes up a lot of space. Once your lives are depleted, there's thankfully continues. The developers also included their Konami code, which was featured in some of their other games as well. Contra players can recite this code with ease decades later. PlayStation, do you want to do the honors?
No. And you better stay away from that whore Xbox.
The stages are pretty unique looking. There's the jungle to start off, there's the waterfalls where you progress by climbing up instead of by going to the right. There's the snowfields and whatever genre you call these awesome ones. A factory, maybe? And there's also the enemy bases where we run forward instead of to the right. And of course, the alien lair. Looks like some kind of secreted resin.
Yeah, but secreted from what?
Nobody touched nothing.
In terms of the art style, clearly this game took a lot of inspiration from the Alien franchise, as did many other games on the NES from the time. The music is also awesome, with fans still making remixes to this day. Links in the description below. So after beating the North American version, I figured I'd check out the Japanese version and just beat it for an easy trophy, and lo and behold, there's some cool differences. Wait, an opening cutscene? Introduction of the characters? And little cutscenes with a map after each level, kind of like Battletoads. And there's even a little more to the ending. Wait, why didn't we get this for the North American version?
Go! Get to the chopper!
I also took a shot at the arcade version. It was not enjoyable. I'll take the NES version any day. To make matters worse, you can't use unlimited continues like a usual arcade game. Only 3 credits, and then the game resets. I looked into it, and apparently that was the case with the game in the arcade as well. I've never heard of an arcade game doing that. Don't they know how arcade games are supposed to work? It's worth mentioning at this point that with the Anniversary Collection, you can save and you can load your game at any time. So with this ability, it is pretty easy to get through the games if you're willing to save early and save often. It's a bit tedious. Nevertheless, I still did not finish the arcade version. It was that brutal. So let's move on to the sequel, Super C. It's a sequel that's pretty much more of the same, and that's totally fine with me. More fun levels, cool boss battles, and a few levels that are top-down view. Not much to say, except that they improved my least favorite weapon from the first game, the flamethrower. It used to look like this, and now it looks like this. Much faster and a big improvement. The final boss for this one was again some kind of creepy alien queen with eggs all over the place, and it's got that creepy face. Finished and completed, and another trophy. There was also an arcade version for the sequel as well, but once again, I tried it and I just did not enjoy it. The same 3-credit BS. The third game in the series was for the Game Boy, and I never had this one growing up, called Operation C. I am so sorry, you are awesome. I wish I had known that back in the day. There's not a lot of story to these games, but apparently evil humans are messing with the alien DNA to create their own army. Not on my watch. The game also added the homing missile upgrade. Again, this was a pleasant surprise. Add another trophy for finishing it. But these titles, Contra, Super C, Operation C, they had as much title consistency as, say, the Fast and Furious franchise. Speaking of names, one quick dishonorable mention, an NES game called Contra Force. It counts, right?
Wrong.
It was developed as a game called 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿, and I think at some point they realized how much this game sucked, and so they slapped on the Contra name to help it sell. Pretty shady. It sucked so bad the Japanese market didn't even bother to release it. I remember renting it from the video store and I was like, what the hell? Contra Force isn't included in the Anniversary Collection, which I'm thankful for. It's not a real Contra game. So that brings us to Super Nintendo with Contra 3: The Alien Wars. While technically it is the 4th game, at least it had a proper title. Though Super Nintendo typically tended to throw Super into many of their titles, and I guess Super C was already taken. The Super Nintendo took many of the great NES franchises and upped them to 11. Mario, Mega Man, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and Contra was no exception. In 1996, Independence Day had this classic scene. But before that, Contra 3 had this. After losing twice on their little deserted islands, the aliens are back with a vengeance. This time, they've gone on the offensive. The alien wars have begun. Let's attack aggressively? Well, yes, that's an excellent idea. Have you not played a Contra game before, sir? A huge boost in graphics, the ability to swap weapons, and in a sense, being able to protect your weapons and save them for later. The default weapon was now this awesome machine gun. The bosses are big and epic, and the music is kick-ass. There's also some top-down level views, kind of like we saw in Super C, but these allow you to turn 360 degrees. It also added the C word, the cluster upgrade, and the flamethrower is yet again upgraded. There's also an awesome level where you're riding a hover bike out in the highway. As mentioned, it's got a great soundtrack that really helps create the mood of a devastated Earth. I love this entry. Another trophy, please. There's also a game on here called Probotector. I don't know why, but when I see this title and I see probe, I just think of like rectum probe for some reason. Apparently Contra was too violent for Europe or something, so they replaced the human characters with robots. Everything else is the same though, so I'm not sure why robots killing aliens is somehow any less violent. If anyone from Europe knows, let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I finished that one as well. Finally, we have the only Contra game at the time for Sega. Released for the Genesis, we had Contra Hardcore. Wait, Sega Genesis? I don't have to be wearing a different shirt and background for this, do I? This one had different characters to choose from. I picked the dog, or wolf, or whatever he is. He's got a gun for an arm. It looks pretty awesome. There's little cutscenes in between the levels, providing more plot details than usual. I also love the beginning of the first level. The explosions are pretty over the top. It's great. It's almost a bit too much at times. It's a bit hard to see incoming fire. The bosses don't disappoint. They are huge and menacing as well. One of the biggest differences is that there's branching paths. The game actually gives you choice on where to go. In the first instance of this, I went with rescuing the civilians. I guess I'm an old softie. The second instance of this, I did something that probably isn't very Contra-like. I surrendered. I half expected to get a game over screen, though thankfully it led to a cool prison train stage. This edition definitely adds a lot more replay value to this title. However, when you look at the trophy list, they want you to play through it 5 times, I guess, to get all the different endings. 6 if you count the European version. Again, that one had robots for the main characters. While I enjoyed playing it, I really don't want to play through it 5 more times just to get all the trophies. At least, not right now. Anyway, if you're a Contra fan, you'll probably enjoy this collection. While it's just the same games from back in the day, it does have the North American, European, and Japanese version, and so maybe you've never played some of those before. Or maybe you're just looking to replay them for some nostalgia value. It's pretty cheap as well, and I had fun taking another run and gun through the series. Hardcore is definitely the hardest of the series. Come on, man! Use your fighting sprit!
Brace. Remember you said that you didn't want to get too worked up.
I know. It's just hard to stop playing these games. Sometimes I get a little carried away. I'd say we attacked aggressively.